clang, 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 all those weird noises that, if you remember, your modem used to make back in the day.
Yeah,
Dial up.
that was a good sample. We should use that in a song.
All
Well,
right.
here we are. I'll do the formal introductions. This is Sounds and Grounds. I am Zeus, the proprietor of Blackheart Guitars and Coffee. And we have over here our guest, Simon McKay. And over here, we have my co-partner host, the Bard of Shred and Rum, Mr. Jack Costo of Seven Spires.
I need that on a t-shirt by now.
You know what? I've had like a month to do that and I haven't. So I'm writing it down now as we speak. T-shirt.
And we have a guest kitty in the background.
Yeah, who's doing some X-rated stuff, looks
like. Yeah. Well, I instructed her to wait till we were actually recording to do that sort of thing, the money shot. So there you go. Yeah, I'll work on that shirt like as soon as we're done here. I mean, we have a logo, so we might as well have shirts with that and our different names and things like that. So on and so forth. So let's get a little, hey, how you doing? Shout out from Simon McKay here. Simon, just take the floor, whatever you'd like to say to introduce yourself. Take it away.
Oh, well, first of all, before I do anything, I want to know, why do you have Mesa Boogie amps with the logo upside down? I'm going to need to figure that out right away, or it's going to bother me the whole podcast. Why is the logo upside down?
Well, the cabinets are also upside down.
Oh, well, that will explain it. Okay, that's good. Yeah. All right, I'm happy we solved that.
It has to match. No, so back early when I used to play live, being super paranoid of people taking my stuff and wanting to easily look at something and say that's mine, we would flip all the logos upside down and everything.
Oh, that's actually a good idea.
There weren't a lot of people using like that level mesas. I mean, it's just a 50 cal, but still, to have that in a band 10, 20 years ago,
yeah,
was not the norm. But still, when you're hustling and moving gear, like the folks that would help us, back when you had to have like stacks on stage, they all knew like our bass rigs, everything. The logos were all upside down. So
right. Makes sense.
The Marshalls were never on stage. I got those just kind of as a collective thing. It was the same model that Wayne Static uses. I have a couple of his guitars. I have a signed guitar of his, so I got those because I don't know. It's just like a nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of recreate a sound just because I think it's OCD. Like I get some in my head, it's like, man, I want to recreate the sound. So it's like I got this guitar and the pickups, and I look at all the tech specs and stuff, and I was like, well, I have to have this head that has the effects and stuff, and that was kind of towards the end what he would use. But most of the stuff in between was like line 6, like pods and stuff when they were coming out. But I just kept them, Yep, the red bean. That's it. Exactly.
What a nerd.
That's kind of par for the course here. You ask a question and you get a 9-minute answer that goes from point A to point E equals MC squared X 12. So there it is.
Cool. All right. Well, circling back around to what you asked me, yeah, I'm doing good. Do I even have to announce who I am? I'm Simon. I'm a drummer. Hopefully people know who I am, but if you don't, that's cool too. I was a drummer of the Agonist for 17 years. Recently, the band disbanded. Yeah, so now I'm living the single life, so to speak, with music.
Yeah, musically.
With music.
Ladies, fellas, it's musically single.
I'm very happy with my fiance. But yeah, so that's what's up. It's cool, man. Last night I went to I had a great night last night. There was a show, Death Angel Sepultura creator show. Hit that up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really, really great show. Man, Derek Green from Sepultura. Holy shit. Holy.
No,
Anyway.
no, you can say that one. You can
Okay.
totally say that.
Yeah, the show was, and I mean, Eloy Casagrande. I mean, like, he's probably like the best drummer out there right now.
Yeah, I remember seeing them on 70,000 Tons by accident, just kind of like walking into one of the and seeing Eloy just like absolutely. It looked like he wanted to hurt his drum kit. It just hit like a tank.
Yeah, I
It
heard
was
that
so impressive.
I heard he changes his snare head every show. Like every show is new head because he just hits so hard. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And afterwards, I actually went to down the street. There's a bar called Turbo House, a really well-known bar around here, and Vicky, the singer of the Agonist, was there with her other band, Six Sense, in
Oh,
Montreal,
right. Yeah.
playing their first show as a band. So
That's cool.
yeah. So I checked out most of the show of the Creator Sepultura show. And then I packed up and I ran down to Turbo House and I caught like the end of the Sixth Sense show just to, support and say that I saw the first Sixth Sense show. They're
Right.
actually playing again tonight at the same place because it's like a really small place. So they're doing two shows, but yeah, it was awesome. It was really weird to see her on stage with me not being on stage, but she was killing it, and everyone was cool. Everyone was happy. So yeah, it was an interesting scenario,
Right on.
That's awesome. I mean, there's probably not a lot of opportunities to see your bandmates from the crowd,
That's right. That's right. The only other time I've seen her sing on stage when I wasn't on stage was when we were on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise, and there was a all-star jam, and they were doing Maiden, and she was up on stage singing Maiden, and Paco was actually up on stage too. So that was really interesting. I got to see them both. They had like John Longstreth behind the kit. That was
Ooh, yeah.
yeah,
nice.
but playing Maiden though,
Yeah.
So he's just like
Probably taking a nap.
Yeah, exactly. Like sipping an espresso.
cheers. Drink break. Good.
Cheers to that. Oh, we're all right.
We need the hydrate buttons. I feel like the streaming thing is taking over, but it's very cool. Yeah. So speaking of seeing ex bandmates, I guess to say on stage. So you were in Agonist 16, 17 years, you said?
17 years, yeah, man.
17 years.
Yeah.
And 9 of those with Vicky. Is that about how long? 9, 10? Something like that?
That's a good question. I'd say yeah, it's gonna be about 8 or 9 years. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll just get this out of the way. There are questions sort of pertaining to this, but
Sure, yeah.
was it tough transitioning? Like, these are basic questions I'm sure you'll get asked quite a bit and have been asked quite a bit. But having a replacement singer, and this is also connected to, you mentioned Derek Green, who I follow, him and Tanya, the bass player. They do a Highway to Health. They're both plant-based, and they have a show where they travel. And I'm trying to get them here. I send them messages and things like that occasionally. But having those shoes to fill for Derek coming into Sepultura like he did, like you have firsthand experience of, what are the positive things like having an original singer who's typically this is the person that brings people into a band because they're the front person, transitioning from one to another, like what are some of the positive things that you experienced from transitioning that? Like it's Sepultura, in my opinion, musically the old stuff can't touch the technicality and the musicianship of the new stuff, but I know it took Derek years and years for people to accept him and things like that. But he's such a beast. Like even without his dreads, like when he had those dreads initially, it was like, man, they could not have got a more intimidating guy to replace Max. But like, what do you think for you? Like, your experience with that same transition, replacing a founding member.
Yeah, well, you're asking what was it like, or what are the what's the question exactly? Is what are the
Uh,
positives?
what are the positive things of it? Right. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
everybody's read, well, blah, 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 this. But, you know, there are positive things that come out of that for like your transition and experiencing both, and
Mhm.
pretty much an almost equal amount of time between them. Um, Anything you think experience wise doesn't have to be positive, but sure, that's I'd rather steer the ship in that direction, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
up to
sure.
you. Anything experience wise that you felt transitioning, you know.
Well, I can say it was not easy at all. It was very difficult,
Right.
actually. Um, what it took was us just sticking to our guns and keeping your head down and just going for it, because everyone's going to have comments online. Everyone's going to have an opinion, and they're entitled to their opinion. Everyone's allowed to think what they want, and it was really difficult, man. Like
Right.
basically, when we first got Vicky into the band, we had all these festivals to do, so we had to do that all, and then we had to kind of like figure out where we're going as a band musically, and we already had an album pretty much wrote, or music wrote, and so Vicky was doing a really great job on these recordings at first, so we knew it was going to be great, and it was great, but it took I mean, there was like a learning curve to learn how to all work together. It's like
Right.
a new dynamic. In the positive side of things, that is one of the positive side of things, that if you do have a anyways, in our situation, the way we did it is that we needed to do it, or else the band would have collapsed. If we didn't switch our singer, there would have been no more band,
Sure. Sure.
which I'm sure some
Instrumental.
no, but I mean, just the way the band was structured and everything, and
Right.
the personal reasons and lives, that they would have been over. So it was either over or try a new singer and carry on, which was what we did.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was hard, man. And you know, uh, honestly, at first, like Vicky, she'll probably tell you the same thing. She's probably having a hard time too, man. It was not easy for her. I mean, can you imagine?
Right.
Like having to fill shoes of like any band that's relatively well known, and then you come in and people are attached to the music, and all of a sudden it's like, who's this person? But honestly, man, Vicky just hit a point where she was just like, not that she wasn't like amazing before, but at some point she unlocked like level up, and like she just became like a super pro, and it was
Right.
just, and that was a process. It didn't happen automatically, and not to say once again that she wasn't pro before, but
Right. Right.
at a certain
Um,
point she just hit a level, and it's like, oh, there it is, there it is. That's what it is. That's the front person, that's the singer. Now you're a pro singer, and it took a while to get there, man. And that whole period, like, right before that happened, that was a pretty dark period too, man. There's a lot going on, and it was like, yeah, it was not easy, dude. It was not
right.
easy to replace a singer.
Right.
Yeah, just knowing how people are on the internet these days, and like I think a good example of this, other than the Sepultura example, is when Nightwish and Tarja split, like way back in the day. People are still talking about that, and it's been like
Of
20
course.
years. And it like I can't imagine having to step into a situation like Vicky did and already have the cards stacked against you with, like, people's opinions and all this outside stuff. And I
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
can
everyone
imagine it's super difficult for everyone.
everyone judging you too, everyone expecting something out of you, instead of just like, that's the thing that fucks with your brain. It's like, well, we're trying to just have people enjoy our music, but they're
Right.
expecting so much, and you have so much to. There's a lot of pressure, on everyone,
Right.
not just the singer. I mean, guys, there's people that still think Bruce Dickinson is the new guy in Iron Maiden. People like that exist. I'm telling you.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So what are you gonna do? You just deal with it. And
Right.
I personally, I'm a kind of guy that, like, I don't shy away from reading comments. I read every single comment. I want to
Right.
know everything,
Right.
the
Sure.
good,
Yeah,
the
me
bad,
too.
everything. I want to know it all. I mean, why would you not want to know what people think about your music? Like, it's, to me, I don't get it. Some people don't. They don't. And they're like, no, I don't want to know anything about it. Fine, but me, I want to know the feedback, the good and the bad. So being
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was, and also I would take care of the social media of the band for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years. So I'd be reading everything, seeing all that stuff.
Right.
Um, but Vicky did a great job, man, and we did some killer albums with her, and she grew her own fan base, and she grew her own community, and she just grew, man. She like leveled up hard. So
Right. And especially not ever being in a real band or signed band, for her to suddenly be here and then taking it. Though I think that's how you see people that are meant to do what they do, and just needing that opportunity,
yeah,
it'd be different to have someone that had maybe played in a bunch of bands come in and do it. But
yeah.
seeing that all of a sudden, like being in the situation new and then jumping up, uh, was amazing to watch that. So
I mean, she will tell you. She told us. She's like, when you guys hired me, like, what the fuck were you thinking? There's my one F bomb.
right, okay,
She literally. Of course, she's being very self-deprecating and
right, sure.
perfectionist, like most artists are. But that's what she said. It's funny.
Yeah, from like probably one of the first nationally signed bands hiring someone from like a YouTube video. Like I don't know of any other situation where that kind of happened on your level. Sure, bands on ABCDE level labels, home labels get people now all the time, but 10 or so years ago, it's kind of unheard of, especially in another
Yeah.
country.
Hmm.
Greece coming from there.
Yeah.
That was one of the things we had talked about earlier with you. Just as an aside, was I thought it was really difficult to be in other countries. And Jack can also attest to this with his band, not necessarily in other countries, but playing all over the world, and only two members living in the same city. Whereas Simon, with your situation, four members in one city, one member in another country. And you were like, no, it's not like you think at all. So educate
Mm.
me, like your experience, both you guys, like being bands nowadays where you're hundreds or thousands of miles apart, writing songs, connecting and bonding. Like you used to be the five guys that went to high school playing music together, and now it's one person's in Europe, one person's maybe in Australia, a couple guys in California. With your experience, how does that work, and how is it not what I think being ignorant about it? Like, how is it better, and how is it? How does it work for you being, not contained in one area for a band?
Mm. Honestly, I don't know, Jack. Maybe you can weigh in yourself after, but I would say it's almost even better.
Hmm.
Because look,
Right
there's two
on.
ways. There's a couple ways of going about it. Like the Agonist back in the day, how do we write music? We used to get it together in a jam space and jam out riffs, and then tell each other, okay, let's try this after, and then sometimes like write stuff on a blackboard, Slayer riff times two, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we put it together, and then it's like you jam like, oh man, you didn't do the change. I told you, I wanted to and like work it out that way. That's fine. That's great. That's how we wrote music. And then at a certain point, the technology became involved, and like the having a DAW, having like a recording interface. And I can't remember what album. I think I was on our album 5. We started to do things like that. So then it was like, well, I have these riffs, and I'm going to send them to you. And then um, man, I have so much to say about this. I don't even know where to go. It's like, no, I mean seriously though. It's like,
Yeah.
what's better? Look, here's the disadvantages of being all in a room together. You're all there talking over each other and whatever, and it's like maybe not everyone's ideas can get heard. Maybe not one has ideas. That's fine. Maybe there's only a couple of primary people that are contributing. That's fine. But there is a kind of like live vibe to be had, and that is interesting. But honestly, in 2023, if you're if you're a good musician, if you can play, there's no reason why you can't send riffs and tracks across the world, and then learn these things and then show up for a tour. Like,
Wow.
no practice. Of course, you can practice, but like, to me, that's what you should be able to do, because we live in a global world. Everything's connected. Everything. If you live far apart, to me, it's like, well, I find you can get a lot more done on your own writing sometimes, rather than being in a room where you're like, oh, maybe I should say something now, or maybe I'll wait, and then you forgot
Mm.
about your idea. I think that and then I became really good at drum programming. So now this is how I work for everything. Like, I will get a track. If I need to record on drums on for whatever band it is, I will program drums on that first, because I know what I want to play in my head. Now, there's two ways I can go about that. I can get the track, I can go play a little bit over it first. But honestly, like, when I hear a riff, I have like 16 different ideas in my head already. So it's just a matter of like, well, which one is going to work for the riff and
Mhm.
make the riff fall in the pocket. That's the way I go about it. So it's just super easy for me to program a bunch of stuff, learn it as if I was going to, learn a cover song, but I'm learning my own stuff. And then you show up and you did your homework, and that's it. And it's just like everyone shows up and like, boom, you go. And that's fucking awesome. That's awesome. Like, to me, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like no messing around. Everyone, like, no, like, oh, we got Dave's over in the corner smoking a joint or whatever. It's like we eliminated all the sofas in our jam room. There's just one little shitty guitar chair to change your strings. There's like the drum throne, and then you're standing up and you're jamming. And
Yeah.
like, that's the way I like it personally. I
Right
mean,
on.
it's funny now, because now I'm kind of like, I've done all that for many years. Now I kind of want to go back to like the jam room kind of vibe, and like vibe that out, and just like, play some blues in a jam room or whatever. But for writing music and like being in a professional, like, metal band, or, even a rock band, honestly, I
Yeah.
think that's the way to go. Sending riffs, taking your time, putting down your track, adjusting it. Oh, now we have the vocals on the track. Okay, send the track back to me, because now I got to make these drums match the vocals now.
Ah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that
I'm gonna
level of
write
like
this down.
that level of like you're constantly trimming the fat, getting better, and then you, at the end, you have a great song. And sometimes it's really hard to do that when you're in a room with four other people. There's no
Right,
time. There's no
right.
time and
It's like 10 minutes,
patience.
we gotta do this.
So this way, with the tracks, it's like you're just like looking at everything, and you're like, oh, this little tiny thing is bothering me, and you just go through it again and again until nothing bothers you, and then you have a great track. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree, and the experience is pretty much the same. Like, I don't think in Inspires, like, we couldn't do things the jam room way and have it come out remotely the same. Like, there's so much time that's taken, even down to doing the keyboards and orchestral stuff. And I think both are really good. In an ideal world, we'd have unlimited time to do the DAW thing and then do the jam room thing after. And but it's kind of like one's chocolate and one's peanut butter, and they're both good. But if you can kind of mold the aspects of both, then you have a delicious dessert at the
That's,
end.
Not just
And
dessert,
I
a
think
main
also the
course.
yeah, I think the other cool thing about the DAW age and most bands doing that is it allows the technology allows songwriters to see an idea through from start to finish and present that to people so that they can see like a clearer vision of what a song is supposed to be, rather than just getting a riff or a little snippet of an idea and then maybe that ends up somewhere way far off from what the first writer originally intended. And
Mhm.
for good or for worse, like it'll let vocalists can program drums now instead of having to learn to play a kit or something like this. It just
Right.
like there are so many tools that can let you get that idea from start to finish efficiently by yourself and then present it and just tweak that, rather than having to rely on everyone else to come up with their own piece of things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And on top of it, when you have tracks and you have files, and now you all of a sudden you can practice to your files. You can bring guitar tracks to the jam room, build yourself a click, and there you go. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to do that when you're all writing in a jam. You just have to like remember what the song is, and it's
Mm.
Yeah, and for tours and stuff too, like if you have everything mapped out to a click, to tracks, like you can practice with the tracks by yourself, show up, run through the set one time, and go out on tour. If you don't have that, you have to rely a lot more on being used to jamming with each other, knowing who's going to drag what, who's going to push what.
That's it,
It's just a
exactly.
lot more nuanced and live, more breathing organism, which is cool, but it can also take a lot more time to really nail that down.
For sure, man.
Wow. It seems like that's the future that's now, and things will only progress from there. Um, it's
Nah,
cool.
man. Soon we'll just be like, oh, just send all the ideas to the AI. It'll filter through it,
No, never.
spit out a song. Good to go.
Yeah, it's like the same thing when we went to digital recording, and then suddenly you're in this world where there's no noise. You don't have to waste time cutting tape, and then now we're trying to put some of that stuff back in, like all the noise and
Right,
distortion and what. And it's
right.
now we have the DAW stuff, and people are trying to put some of the live element back into these things written all on a computer by one guy.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Like, do you guys either think you lose any of, like Jack, you mentioned the push and pull of playing together. The click track has sort of taken everything over as like the number one, I think, piece of the band member, like the sixth member is like the click track. Um, how do you both feel? Because you guys have played with and without clicks for your careers, but it seems like that's the thing now, especially with you constructing music in separate places at separate times. Like you have to have that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I would think, but how does that affect the humanity and the push and pull? Like greats like Pantera and Van Halen never played with like click tracks, and you can feel that emotion that kind of loosens and tightens from the tempo
Absolutely.
drops. With a click track, and especially we'll get into some of the questions because we do have like 17 questions, into this. Some of them are very similar, but they do pertain to a lot of live touring and playing and songwriting uh, inquiries from people. But like I was always afraid of clicks playing in bands. Like you lose that human side of it, and I never want AI to replace music for human beings myself. But both of you guys can run with that, your opinions and how you feel. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it always going to be there, or what's your take on the click track?
Um,
Well, I'll let the
I
drummer answer first. This is more
Yeah.
important.
We'll
More
let
important
the
than my
drummer
opinion.
guitar player, which is a good one, we get into the
Yeah, we'll get into this too.
um, you've raised a really good point. It does take the humanity out of it. However, like, look, what are you going for? Like, I played for many years without a click, and then we started using click, and it scared the crap out of me in the beginning, of course, too. Now I'm like, I live by the click. You know what I mean? Because I'm so used to it. I played in a Pantera cover band as well, so I'm very like familiar with how it feels to like stretch out just the ending of a riff and then
Mhm.
coming all, and that's really fucking awesome. And it's really hard to do that with the click. It
Right.
is. It
Yeah.
is. It is. You can program accelerations and decelerations. You can totally do that, but they'll be the same every time. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Right.
It won't be
Right.
like, oh shit, oh that was tight, oh we almost missed that, but it was badass.
Right.
That dangerous element, you lose that. Yeah, you do. But what are you trying to do? You're trying to put on a great show for your audience. That's number one. So it's like you just want people to feel it, and people feel music to a click track live. They just do. If you're going to see a metal band, you want most people want the band to sound tight and good. And it's like I saw Black Dahlia the other day. It was like absolutely flawless.
Right. Right.
I mean, if it was different from the album, I'm sure I wouldn't have minded that much. But I mean, that's just the standard nowadays. I remember the first time I heard a drummer playing to a click, and I was like, "Oh my god, this guy sounds great! Like, what is this? How does it sound so good?" And then it's because I realized because I hadn't been playing to a click. This was like 13 years ago, 14 years ago, and then I started playing, and then oh shit, and then I straightened myself out, and now it's playing to a click has made me grow so much as a musician too, because now I can play really straightened out but without a click.
Oh,
I don't rush little like endings I mean, of course I might, but I do it less because I'm used to that.
Right,
So
it's in your
honestly,
head now. It's you've done it for so long.
yeah, so honestly, I'd be like, if I got a gig and they'd be like, "We're not playing to a click," I'd be like, "Whoa, you serious?" I'd be like, "Shit, okay, all right." I'd really like, I'd really, I'd really have to practice that and practice in a room with them, perhaps even too. You know?
Right.
Yeah, and at that point, you're kind of at the mercy of how good everyone else is at locking into each other. I'm of the opinion that the click is more beneficial the better of a musician you are. Like,
Mm,
if you're amazing with, like, if your internal clock is amazing and you know the parts really well and you can play them really well, the click will only help. But if you're struggling, having a really hard time, and you don't have a good sense of timing on your own, the click will just make your mistakes stand out more.
right.
um, so I think it helps, and I do think you lose something for sure, but it's such a malleable thing. As Simon said, you can program accelerations, decelerations, tempo changes, and stuff. So I think it's a matter of consciously manipulating it as a tool rather than just setting and forgetting the tempo